To call the meeting to order for the Charter Review Committee this Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Ms. Evans, can you call the roll?
Absolutely, thank you. Member Smith? Present. Member Wilson?
Here.
Member Poole?
Here.
Member Rokier?
Here.
Member Hathaway?
Here.
Member Palmer?
Here.
Member Riker?
Here.
Member Fugele?
Here.
Vice Chair Eisen?
Here.
Let the record show that Member Rashadat is absent and Chair Billings will be here late.
Thank you so much. Now that we have a quorum, I'd like to move forward. Since this is a sanctioned city meeting, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I like that last time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. Has everyone reviewed the meeting minutes from June 3rd? I'm sorry,
Yes.
Yeah, June 3rd. And if so, well, first of all, is there any questions? Okay. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the June 3rd minutes.
I make a motion to approve. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is public comments. I'd like to move to public participation. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please remember to say your name and address. You will see a yellow light indicating that you have 1 minute remaining. When the red light appears, your time is complete, and the next citizen may approach the dais. At the conclusion, we will have any other comments from the floor. So who'd like to come up?
Hi, I'm Kathy Vaughn. I live at 5 and 19 Faulkner Street, and I was speaking in relation to Section 6.04, sale and lease of significant public lands. I support the requirement for a unanimous vote of all 5 members of the City Commission to sell or issue a long-term lease for such significant properties. The site this next section would most likely be applied to is the North Causeway property known as the AOB site. I recall a meeting several years ago in which the New Smyrna Beach City Commission, with 2 members absent, voted 2-1 against extending a deadline for the would-be developer of that proposed Coronado Island Marine Village to close the deal. He had been awarded the opportunity to buy the 4-acre site 2 years earlier, and his plans call for a marina with dry boat storage, a hotel, and public boardwalk. However, he had trouble pulling the financing together, and he'd already been granted an earlier extension of time. At that moment, only one commissioner's vote saved our city from selling off scarce and valuable waterfront public land. Because we kept that property, the city currently is planning some future improvements at the AOB site that would benefit our citizens. Those include a proposed covered boathouse to keep the police department's patrol vessel on site, as well as potential second phase of North Causeway waterfront improvements. That's some floating docks with boat slips, a rock revetment to stabilize the shoreline, and an additional, I think, 400 square foot pavilion. It may also include a 400 feet of wooden boardwalk. I think the city is doing perhaps a fine request to partially fund these improvements. Also concerning Section 6.03 of historic preservation, to my feeling is the streets lined with historic homes and businesses play a big role in maintaining the remaining quaint hometown character in their respective sections of New Smyrna Beach. They also help to draw people here, and which boosts the local economy. I hope the Charter Review Committee recommends maintaining this section of historic preservation as stated, if not strengthens it. I'd like to see the city move forward with implementing the guidelines C and D as those are written. If that's been done, I don't think most people would be aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Cindy Snezak, 512 Yupon. Thanks for hanging in there for all of these meetings. And I hope tonight is not your last meeting. A couple of things, because it's really hard to tell what you might also discussed tonight and whether or not you're going to address all the things citizens have brought up in the time limit that you have. So there is no drop dead date for this to be the last meeting, so please consider that. Gosh, stuff overlaps. So let me just try to do it in an order. 2.06 forfeiture of office. Right now it talks about crimes of moral turpitude, okay? But why not any felony? There are felonies that are not due to moral turpitude. So I think that is a phrase that's missing and should be there. 2.02, there are things that we know about right now, but none of the discussions so far have dealt with them. And so it's pretty clear that based on the information in the Deering Park hearings, that there is going to be a substantial increase in the population as that development really starts to rock and roll. So it's reasonable that there might be a sixth zone created. And even if there weren't, there would have to be a reapportionment. And I don't know if your reapportionments have to tie to census or not, but please, there should be some language in here that avoids what happened the last time, where sitting commissioners had zones carved out so that they wouldn't have to give up their seat because they were no longer a resident of the zone. And I didn't say that very well, but the idea is watch the carve-outs, and there are some weird breaks in where the zones are, but the significant growth toward Venetian Bay is going to make everything lopsided. And it looks like, if I read the numbers right, people have gone out of their way to make sure that there's almost a level amount of population in each of the zones, and that could change. 2.12 voting, that's probably the most important thing, and I'm running out of time. The mayor is not just another commissioner, and here's why. He votes last on votes that are held here, which gives him an extraordinary amount of power because he tests the room and can afford to make a yes vote when the majority already goes the other way. Voting, I think, should be random and should rotate by the clerk on matters.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Deb Exum. I live at 622 Faulkner Street in a restored 1920 historic home. First, I want to thank each of you for all the time you've spent considering the charter review. And I'm here tonight to speak from my heart and experience. My deep commitment to historic preservation goes well beyond my 1920 doorstep. I was deeply involved in the creation of the Riverside Garden District, now a recognized historic overlay, and served as the founding board member for the historic New Smyrna Historic Preservation Awards. Adhering to historic preservation standards, we awarded properties that advanced our city's unique character. Preservation is not nostalgia, it's smart economic strategy. People are drawn to cities that protect and celebrate their historic core. Well-preserved homes and districts raise property values, attract thoughtful investment, and foster pride of place. I suspect many of you moved here for the same reasons we did: the special charm of New Smyrna Beach and its rich architectural heritage. That's why the city charter must explicitly reflect our commitment to historic preservation. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a practical necessity. A clear mandate in the charter will ensure future development respects the fabric of our neighborhoods, supports sustainability, and reinforces our shared identity, especially as we face the pressures of growth and change. We must also fix a structural imbalance in our city leadership. Currently, city commissioners serve 4-year terms, while the mayor is limited to 2 years. This disparity undermines the role's effectiveness. 2 years is scarcely enough to learn the position, establish collaborative relationships, and drive meaningful policy change. If we expect the mayor to lead, we must give them the time to succeed. Aligning the mayor's term with that of the commissioners at 4 years is a simple, necessary step towards good governance. Equal terms promote continuity, accountability, and sustainability. To that point, I support the committee's recommendation, thank you, for a 4-year mayoral term and increased compensation to attract quality candidates. Strengthening our preservation commitments in the charter and modernizing leadership terms are not just policy updates, they're affirmations of who we are as a city and who we want to be. A city that honors its past and empowers its leaders is a city prepared for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Exum. Good evening. Good evening, Sally.
Section 6.04 is what I'm going to address tonight. And that is a very short section, but a very important one for the future of our country, our state and city, of course, as well. Of course, it's very valuable land. But beyond that, it could be a lifeline for us in the future. And I'll tell you why. A few years ago, our director of the Utilities Commission said that based on the evidence presented of sea level rise, that in 30 years or less, we would be having to have desalination. Now, when you think about the available land on a waterway, we don't really own that much. The oceanfront is taken up by private or on the south end by our governments. So this and Riverfront Park is about all we own. Remember, we're getting our water today. All of our springs are closed. The last one was several years ago. All of our water comes from west of New Smyrna and is overseen how much we get by the St. Johns River Management District. And ultimately, as the director of the UC said, we won't have those springs available either because there will be saltwater intrusion. So in our future is definitely desalination, and we've been told that. So I would urge you to leave 6.04 as it's written, or to, if you wish, strengthen it as the last Charter Review Commission did and require a vote of the electorate to sell such land. In the meantime, I hope our city commissioners will look at the land and come up with constructive ideas on how to use it while retaining the ownership by our city. I have some ideas, I'm sure you do too, and we should pass those along to the commissioners. We don't need to sit on the land for the next 20 or 25 years, but we do need to keep owning it. I appreciate your consideration of these remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Jess Romero, 708 South Cooper Street. I sent Mr. Palmer and Ms. Poole a note today, an email, I don't know if you got it or not.
I have not seen it.
Yeah. And that's a lot of questions that I asked here. I come before you and I asked for 3 things so far. One was term limits on commissioners and charter officers because you already voted or recommended that the compensation for the mayor and the commissioner should be changed, not be held in their hands. So why not leave whether they're here for life the term limits out of their hands, put it in the charter, and say you're going to only be here for X amount of years. We should consider that. What was the other one? Well, forget that. Anyway, so special elections. You're going to have a special election. I recommend that. I would recommend that if you do have special elections, you're required to have at least 45% of the people that are registered to vote meet that threshold. If you don't, it doesn't go through. And if these changes go into the charter, they take effect in 2028, not in 2026. Now, on section 403, the city attorney, its qualifications, I recommend that we change that, the last line, that they have experience of 10 years in local and federal government. Right now, it's just experience. That's it. It doesn't say how much experience or how little experience. On the, I think I mixed up here. There we go. Okay. So on the independent audit, which is section 506, it should be an audit should be conducted whenever you get a new city manager or a new city, finance director. That you know where the money's going to, where it's been. Because they're here for a purpose to audit you here, out of the city here for the money, and they should have it done then. 6.02, land development and zoning. Under A, I would recommend, it says preserving the scale and character of the city's neighborhood. This only applies to subdivisions. Out on Beachside, you buy a lot, you can put up a mansion in it, whatever you want. It changes the character of the whole neighborhood. All you're seeing now is just glass and metal. So it needs to be something across, not just subdivisions. Big things there. It says on the section Article 7, which I don't think you're going to address tonight. I hope you do. The charter review, which is something that was discussed here quite a bit at the first meeting. I'd like to see it changed. It says the following. It says the charter review, periodic review shall be done in the calendar year of 2036. So we don't have any more of this, well, shall and may means the same thing. It's 25, we should have had it in 26, but that's beside the point. So we need to put it in the charter that says that the review will be in the calendar year of 36. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi. Leslie Sachs, 816 East 8th Avenue, New Smyrna Beach. Wasn't planning on speaking, but I jotted down a few things. I'm really against the mayor having a 4-year term unless there's also term limits added. It takes power away from the people to vote a majority and of 3 instead of 2 and 2, 2 and 2, you know. So if 3 people are up every 2 years, that gives the people a louder voice because they can institute change of the way they want to see their city grow. I'm also, the reason here for continuously campaigning, he's got an edge being an incumbent. He also is not actively campaigning, but just being on the dais, he is voting, and the citizens know him better than any other candidate. So actually, that's an advantage. And therefore, I just think we're bending over too far the other way, taking away the voice of the people, and we should care about campaigning. Campaigning's not hard. I ran 2 successful campaigns when my husband sat on the dais. So I don't know why that is such an issue or the reason. I also don't think they should get a 25% raise when the county just got a 5% raise. And they shouldn't get a raise at all. They get a 3% COLA, and they have retirement, and they have free medical, et cetera. The rank and file, there's never any money in the budget for the rank and file whenever they want a raise or people have asked to try and get them a raise. So until the rank and file get decent pay, then I don't think anything should change as far as the commission's pay scale or how it's figured out with the 50% instead of 75%. And quality people you get quality people in all walks of life because we've got the greatest employees and they are paid the worst. And I think they should get a raise more than anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening, all. Joe Dluback, 3587 Casalta Circle, Venetian Bay. I have 4 items quickly. I've been out, so some of these may not be appropriate at this point, but the first one has to do with observations, not my opinion, but just observations on social media. The majority of the discussion seems to around the issue of voting for the mayor, whether it's 2 years or 4 years. The majority of the impression there that you will see is for 2 years. The issue there has to deal with if the public, the voting public, do not like where the city is going, it gives them the quick option to respond to that. Otherwise, they lose their ability to do that. The second, in terms of the votings that you see in some of the tables, it's not only important to know what the majority vote is, but in some cases, it's equally important to know what the minority comments are, and we'd like to see that exposed. Something I feel truly is important has to do with the responsibility of the people that are making decisions for the city. You know, keep in mind that the city charter is a living document. It's not like, well, even the Declaration of Independence is a living document there of amendments. And your charter is to anticipate what the city is going to be interested in the next 10 years or earlier, but no longer than that. And as I kind of pointed out, the major of the activity in the city is going to be, as the mayor will point out, west of 95. There are going to be developments there. There are going to be major developments. It is hard to distinguish between what is the city commission's responsibility and what the city manager responsibility. I've been working with some of you for many years on this subject on Venetian Bay, and I personally have not figured it out. I don't think, I've had a meeting where I've been with the city mayor. He has looked at something and saying, my God, that doesn't look like what we want. Unfortunately, I forgot to ask, what are you going to do about it? Because nothing has changed. Just a quote from Jerry Johnson, who I talked to frequently while he was still alive. Paraphrasing his comment, he's disappointed in what GeoSam did to his vision of Venetian Bay. He unfortunately is appalled that the city let him do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public participation? Okay. We did have some information sent to city clerk from a citizen, but I see the citizen in the gallery, so we won't talk about that. I would like to thank all the New Smyrna citizens for your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions to this committee. I'd like to remind the charter members that this meeting, like the last one, will be run respectively and according to Robert's rule. Our facilitator, Susan Boyer, will bring up each item. We'll have a motion for discussion, a second discussion. Everyone will be heard twice, and then we'll see where it goes for vote. So, Susan, can you bring us up to date on any outstanding items first, and then to our current item?
Sure. So you have in your packet this evening, you have from the city attorney, the updates that you all have so far approved on the charter. So that is one of the documents. It is redlined, so you can see what the language as the city attorney has proposed it. In reviewing it, I believe it all reflects what your motions have been on those particular items. So unless anybody has any comments, you have this in your packet. Hopefully everybody's reviewed it. If we've gotten something wrong, which I don't think so, but if there is something that you don't like, let us know. Now you could bring it up if you want to bring it up. And then the second item is my table, I guess we'll call it, my chart, the city clerk has pulled that up on the screen. You will see one of the additions that you all asked for was the next to the last column, which was reasons for not making proposed modifications. I've gotten some recommendations from y'all. I'll do a little bit of updating in there. But again, this goes along with the document from the city attorney, which is the amendments to the charter as they are currently proposed. I'm happy to answer any questions on either of those items that you all may have.
Is there any questions to the red lines?
Yeah, really quick question. So it's great to see that you have included the reasons for not making the proposed, changes. So it's kind of the pros and the cons list that we talked about. And, a lot of people in the public wanted to see the same thing. So I'm really glad that that's here. I'm wondering if the right language is reasons for not making proposed modifications, maybe reasons against proposed modifications or something like that might be a little bit clearer for people to understand. More on the pros and cons, but having back to the recommendations. And I think you've done a great job of starting to capture some of, those cons. We've had a lot of discussion on the dais and had a number of really short talking points that I think could be upgraded into here. So I'm looking forward to seeing your next document.
Okay.
Any other comments on the red line document for reasons and changes? Okay, I think this document improves every 2 weeks. All right, so next, Susan.
Then the next section that we should be discussing this evening is Article 6, Sustainability. We are looking at Section 6.03, Historic Preservation. In your packet material, you have I'm going to call it, Palmer, I'm going to call it a memorandum, but you have an outline of some proposed changes to the charter for 6.03 that Palmer Wilson has put together. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to review what Palmer has written. And with
Could we put that up on the?
Yes, give the clerk just a second. She is ready for that question, so she'll pull it up.
And just for clarification as well, in the last meeting, 6.01 was approved as is, as
Correct.
was 6.02, just for clarification for the public.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, let me address this a little bit, and I apologize for the first version. There's no real difference in here. I was doing it on an airplane en route to DC, and I had a couple of little computer glitches in it, but the content's essentially the same. I just fixed those errors. What I'm proposing here, as I talked about in the last meeting, is to try to bring this more in line with the current guidelines from the state, the current direction that Chapter 50, the implementing ordinance, is headed, and while still maintaining the character and the character and the encouragement for continued historic preservation. As I note in my thing, and I won't go over it in minute detail, but the CLGs, which is Certified Local Government Guidelines from the state, has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. Secondly, the Chapter 50 itself had some changes incrementally made via the city attorney's office to reduce some of the oversight by the Historic Preservation Board to bring it more in line with legislation and other ordinances. So what I proposed here is not an abandonment of historic preservation, but a recognition that the historic preservation that we're talking about is predominantly private property. It doesn't belong to the city. And if you look in my suggested rewrite, I covered the city property pretty clearly, that there would be a continued support for that activity. And I really only changed the wording slightly so that to take it out of a mandated kind of oversight and put it more into an encouragement oversight, which is also the trend that in the last meetings, the City Commission had voiced on several occasions about trying to do it as an encouragement. The CLG, which drives the Chapter 50 and upon which Chapter 50 has to conform to, is clearly limited the oversight capacity to homes within a local historic district. We currently do not have any local historic districts in New Smyrna Beach. We have 2 national historic districts, which do not come with any oversight. So the ability to control oversight on contributing structures inside of a national district is not consistent with the state guidelines, nor the most recent draft of Chapter 50 by the City Attorney's Office. So what I tried to do was to bring this section of the charter, while still encouraging historic preservation, in line with the fact that we're recognizing we're talking about private property currently only in historic districts. So the wording that I put in there, and the key wording is that the city will continue to encourage and/or assist owners of properties identified as contributing structures within our national historic districts and any future local historic districts to voluntarily maintain those structures as they contribute to the city's history. The remaining 2 sections just take the wording from the existing chapter and kind of group it together. So I changed B to say that the city will assist those contributing structure property owners with access and guidance to appropriate and available grants and/or available tax credits that may support self-maintenance. That's virtually just combining 2 sections into one. And then in C, it encourages local groups to organize, create private foundations and/or take leadership role to provide private financial support for the maintenance of identified local historic structures or sites not owned by the city. So that would get to the more area of letting the public kind of control the direction of the private, the local historic district structures, as opposed to the city trying to oversight private property. And then finally, the city and D will continue to provide financial support for the care and maintenance of those historically or locally designated structures or sites within the city owned by the city. So I tried to cover those sites like Old Fort Park and so forth. So in essence, the chain is really just recognizing 2 things. We're dealing with private property of which the city has no legal oversight capacity. So we're wording it around so that the city can assist and help and contribute to do this. So that's my feelings on it.
Okay. Barman?
So, can you hear me? So, I hate these things. So Palmer, yeah, no, I kind of see where you're going here, but honestly, I see pretty much the same thing written, but with a lot more words. When I read through the 4 tenets of the original 6.03, updating regulations pertaining to historic properties, creating and expanding upon local historic districts, developing guidelines that will assist owners in obtaining historic preservation property tax exemptions, and assisting and facilitating owners of historic properties to access existing grant sources. I don't see any differences or many differences at all in what you've written below, other than a lot more words. It clearly doesn't seem that this needs to be updated to me.
It is, because it specifically applies and recognizes the private property ownership, which the original one does not. The encouragement to create local historic districts has already been tried twice and turned down by the citizens. So it's obviously something that's not on a high priority with the citizens. Secondly, if you look at the CLG guidelines, you'll find it's very clear in there that this only applies, the only way you can apply as a city oversight is to a local historic district, and we don't have any of them.
Okay, no, I understand that. Back in 2022, a survey was done of mainland and beachside property owners concerning historic districts. 189 supported the effort on mainland of historic districts. 21 rejected that, 19%. And then there were a bunch of no responses, mainly from people that lived out of town or from Canada. On Beachside, 100 properties, where 41 supported the effort, 20 rejected it, and 39 no response. So even property owners from this particular survey stated that they wanted to have historic districts, and I completely understand why. I'm not advocating right now for historic districts. Honestly, what I'm saying is that I just don't see how you've reworded this, as it makes that much of a difference in the guidelines, and while not trying to confuse the voters when they vote for this, I don't see enough of a change in this to warrant making these changes. I don't really can you explain again what the differences are here from the original? I don't really see the difference.
Well, we'll look at B, subsection B in the
Right.
original. Okay, that's not in my revision. That's the crux of it. I just tried to combine the other ones in two. I mean, I don't have a problem with the assisting with the taxes and the credits. I mean, that's all fine.
Right.
I'm just saying that number 2, creating and expanding historic districts, doesn't fit or is not consistent with the direction of Chapter 50 nor the direction of the CLG guidelines from the state. And that's why Chapter 50 is under revision right now, because of the changing guidelines from the state. And number 2 does not reflect what the impact is on private property. There's absolutely no revealing of a contributing structure status in any real estate transaction in the city. So somebody could be buying into a house with no idea of the controls that this would try to employ on them.
No, I understand that completely, and that's a real problem. I get that. But then also, I don't really see here where you're making it less restrictive. How is the new wording less restrictive than the wording above it, which is, I think, what you were going for? Is that right?
Well, yeah. What I'm saying is that it's encourage. The key word is encourage, as opposed to creating and expanding. That's the change right there.
Okay.
The first one is directing the city to create and expand on local historic districts. And the second one is saying the city will encourage.
Okay.
Let's hear from some other charter members. Anybody else want to speak? Dan?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Palmer, you had mentioned mandated oversight versus encouraged oversight. And your proposed changes are focused more on encouraged oversight. But as I look at the existing 6.03, I really don't see any examples of mandated oversight. You know, the creating or expanding upon local historic districts, that's not mandating oversight. And that's not taking, rights away from homeowners.
But it is, because when you make it a local historic district, you're mandating oversight. That's the key issue here. The national has none. Only the local can have that kind of oversight.
But Palmer, wouldn't that be something that would be handled at where a new law is being created, a new, where we come up with something where we say, okay, well, this needs to be done right now, not in the charter. The charter basically is attempting to just say very generally, just like we did with the last 2 sections, that we want to create and expand local historic districts. This city is one of the most historic cities in Florida. I think it's pretty clear that the citizens want that for all kinds of different reasons. Property values, the section of a charter that can promote the establishment of guidelines for recognizing, protecting, and maintaining buildings and sites of historical significance. As currently written, it will enable regular updates to regulations, the creation and expansion of historic districts, and will assist owners of historic properties in accessing funding sources. Restrictive, I just don't see it. I really don't. I like comments from other members on that.
Who else? Anybody else like to speak? This is Judy.
I will.
Oh,
Sorry, do you? I agree with the changes that Palmer's recommending and kind of understand where he's coming from. when you think about the fact that this charter is what then gives city staff the marching order to go forward and make ordinances and things like that, it's really built on what's in here. And in here, they're saying, create and expand local historic districts. So there's kind of a mandate to do that. And then updating the regulations pertaining to those historic properties. The last, year and a half, 2 years? Time flies, I'm not sure when it happened, but sat through a lot of meetings in this room and a workshop at Brandon Center on this very topic where they were trying to make changes to Chapter 50, the amendments and what have you. And it was very clear that some of the things that were put forward as recommendations to be implemented, in my opinion, definitely encroached on personal property rights. And I agree with historic districts, but like Palmer, I think they should be voluntary in nature. And the other concern I would have would be, let's say the district gets created, then the people overseeing that, at least the way it had been proposed during those meetings, would not be an elected board. Probably wouldn't be anyone with any professional experience from a historic preservation perspective. So from that position, I agree with, making sure that people who want to voluntarily do that, I love the older homes, but people who want to voluntarily do that, develop and help them get the funding to do that. And I'm all on board with those last two items in the previous version, but I have to agree with Palmer on this one.
Judy?
I kind of think Palmer's language is pretty darn good. I had a little heartburn about this creating and expanding upon local historic districts because I saw it as a mandate. And my language was preserving and possibly creating upon local historic districts where appropriate and in accordance with property rights and land development ordinances. So it gives it more of a structure. Not that I'm up for my language or anything, but I just, that just to me seems just really like a mandate. Updating regulations pertaining to historic properties, my language was periodic review and possible updating. I mean, what does that mean, updating? When are you going to update? How often are you going to update? And are you going to update to one side or to the other? It's very, it's not specific enough. I don't know. The Avenue on Flagler Avenue, that restaurant is not historic, and that was permitted. And someone made a comment about the glass and steel buildings that have been replacing the historic properties already. I mean, so we're not following our charter. So as we move forward, how do we want to go forward, like someone was saying, for the next 10 years, that man from Venetian Bay? There's nothing in Venetian Bay that's historic at all. So we're not doing this. I mean, we're not St. Augustine. If there's a way for the city, under the city commission and the leadership of city manager, to create ordinances that help encourage, and I like Palmer's words, encourage, assist, and voluntary. I think those are the three important words that you've said here, because it does encourage. We do need to assist. And maybe there needs more to be done by the city instead of just saying, this is how you will do it. But how can we help? What can we do? Can we get more grants for you? Do we have some historic money that we can put toward your property? I just think I just like his wording better. And he does cover C and D in one sentence. I like that. And I liked about encourages local groups to organize, create private foundations. Well, that's exactly what Deb Exum and your wife, I believe, did, and a bunch of other women. And it's beautiful with the signs, and they have some pride in their neighborhood. Like the West Side, Historic West Side has pride in their neighborhood, like Coronado Beach has pride in their neighborhood, and we put signs up so that everyone can have pride in their neighborhoods. So, it's really up to the people, and the people do a darn good job of this. So I think that I kind of like what you put together in your language, Palmer.
Palmer, could you define contributing structure for us, please?
It's defined by the CLGs as certified local government. I can't give you the exact title, but it has to do with the type of architecture. It has to do with how old it is. And there's a couple of other factors that are involved in there, but I don't know the exact specifics.
Could we hear from the rest of the dais, Steve?
Yeah, I think Palmer's language is excellent. I think eliminating A and B, which were the reasons that we had the meeting about a year and a half ago, that most of the population in the city did not want to move forward with the historic district overlay. I think that that eliminates that push in that direction from the dais. I mean, from the staff and from the commission. I think his language is good. I think he's still acknowledging the historic preservation area of I think our whole city is a historic area in and of itself, and I think it's up to the citizens to want to participate in updating their properties. And I think that I think Palmer did a great job writing that agreement. I think eliminating A and B and crafting some additional language to help support, whether it's tax incentives or whether it's education or support in some other way, I think would be excellent.
Spencer?
I think based on the conversation we had in the last meeting, Mr. Wilson's changes, I think, reflect both our goals of what we were trying to keep and amend some of those very specific things that the current language maybe unintentionally created or maybe intentionally created. Frankly, I appreciate all the effort that went into it. I think it captures exactly what we were talking about. I understand the reasoning behind the language that's in the charter currently, but I think an update on this section after review and after reflection and after seeing what he's put forward, I think the new language encapsulates everything we were talking about.
Sandra?
Could you explain to me, because I read over Chapter 50 this afternoon, and it appears to me there are very many opportunities for people who may be in these districts they have to go through approval processes to get building permits or demolition permits and things like that. So do we have an overlay district, and is it that every house or structure within that overlay district has to come in and request this kind of permit, or how does it actually work, the historic district?
Well, there's only 2 historic districts, so keep that in mind. Okay. So the Chapter 50 that's in place now, not the updated revisions that are in process, but the current Chapter 50 originally controlled both remodeling as well as demolitions inside of the 2 historic districts for contributing structure homes. So there's not every home in there, it's contributing structures.
So how do you know if you have a contributing structure?
Okay. When they did this back in the 1990s, and I tried to find this out from the city, but the records are not very good. Essentially, they think there was a newspaper advertisement that they were going to go for these local historic districts, but they don't have a record of anything. There were no certified letters, no contacts or anything. So they created the districts, and then they hired a consultant who went out and surveyed the homes and came back in with a list of homes that he felt met this criteria. There's no record that any of the people who owned those homes had any opportunity to buy in, buy out, or anything else. They were just put into the contributing structure. The state guidelines at that time covered, as I said, both remodeling and destruction. Subsequent to that, the guidelines have changed. Some state Supreme Court decisions and some other things, the city attorney's office stopped any oversight on remodeling, so it was only on demolition. So last, I think, about 4 years, maybe 5 years, whenever that city attorney did that, they've only looked at demolitions. And that's where it's at right now. But the current Chapter 50 revisions have taken the CLG, the state guidelines, and implemented them. And in fact, one of the reasons I wrote that encourage is, the city attorney's position is that a single homeowner can create a local historic district of 1, or 2 houses, or 3 houses, or 4 houses. So instead of trying like they did before to change the whole district, this would allow them, and the current proposed changes to 50 would allow them to incrementally create them, but with the homeowners who voluntarily wanted to do it. And the current revision actually includes a requirement for a notarized affidavit of their wish to participate.
So if somebody's got one of these designated homes or structures and they want to sell it, do they have to notify the person that's purchasing the property that they have the requirement to adhere to a request to do any kind of reconstruction on their property or demolition?
I'll let Judy answer that question.
City Attorney.
I'll admit I don't have an answer for that question. Happy to research it for you if you'd like.
That would be helpful, I think, for everybody, because I think that's really the big issue here is that when, if you own a home, an old home, and you don't know, why would you know that it's maybe a contributing structure as written?
There's several examples of people that were brought to my attention in recent sales transactions. There was no disclosure.
Right, well, that's typical, unfortunately, and that's something that needs to be addressed as a new law here in New Smyrna Beach. There's no doubt about it, and everywhere, honestly. I mean, in my business, I see it happening all the time where people are sold wetlands.
Right.
Right. So, based on that, I don't see any reason not to adopt your language, Palmer.
Prior to that, Judy, with title experience, from the title company's perspective, what do you think about that? Are people designating when they sell a 1920 home? Is there anything in documentation or in the warranty deed?
No, never seen it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it seems we've somewhat come to a consensus, so would someone like to make a motion regarding the amendment proposal?
I'll make a motion to adopt the proposal as written in my memorandum.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Evans?
Member Smith?
I'm still having issues about
All right, maybe we should amend the to,
You can call for
yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, okay. How about further discussion then? Can you share more, maybe more clarity that you'd like to have?
there are structures in this community that I think need to be preserved. And if somebody comes in and just buys them and they don't have to do anything to them and they tear them down and do a modern structure, and more people are doing that in my neighborhood. And I think it's diluting I think it's diluting the integrity of my neighborhood, the things that are happening in the neighborhood. And it's not just whether it's a structure or not, it's the fact that people are buying houses and they're putting pools in and sheds in, and there's not the pervious area that they're supposed to have. I don't know if it's oversight by staff when they're issuing permits, but again, that would be part of the issue here, is if somebody has a contributing structure, or whatever it is, when somebody comes in for a permit, if staff's not making sure that that's a contributing structure, it has to go through these steps, then we're going to lose the integrity of our historicness of the city of New Smyrna Beach.
I think
and that's my concern.
I think the idea initially was for when they wrote this into the 2020 charter in 2020 was to make sure that didn't happen. That we have something in our charter that says that we will maintain the intrinsic historic nature of this town by having some kind of law or rule that makes that review necessary before a historic home is torn down. And that's my whole problem with this as well. I mean, I don't know whether or not putting this in the charter is going to make any difference or changes, honestly, which is why I've kind of acquiesced to this a little bit, but I feel extremely passionate about that. I mean, my goodness, we're looking at, becoming Boca Raton, which used to be an incredibly beautiful town with old historic structures. They were all torn down, and those areas were developed. It's happened all over the state. New Smyrna Beach has the opportunity to be something different, to be something that a city not like Charleston that is extremely restrictive, but reasonably restrictive to the point where these old homes can't be torn down. I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen in New Smyrna. I don't think any of us would you? I don't think so. I mean, we're leaving a legacy here by maybe watering this down a little bit too much. I don't know. Maybe we should think about that a little bit more.
Well, if I could respond to that, I gave you, the folks in my package, I gave you a listing of all the demolitions since 2008 to let you see what they were and how it went about. So it's not a huge number of demolitions that are going on. And the revision to Chapter 50 and the CLG guidelines still provide an opportunity for some oversight regarding demolitions for those contributing structures. There is, in the CLG, there is one exception, though, is that if the city has a provision for controlling demolitions, then they must have a provision for fines associated for somebody who doesn't follow the rule on a demolition. So there's some controls for that. Okay. And that appears in the current revision to Chapter 50 also. So it's still there. But the issue has to do with mandating that people who were in a National Historic District or who don't want to be a part of a local historic district have that opportunity because it's private property. So that's why I went with the encouragement. So I don't think you'll see a watering of the ability to control the demolitions. I think what I'm trying to do here is to guide it over to, if you want to be in the historic business, then you can opt into it. If you don't want to be in the historic districts, you can't be forced into it. And that's basically what we're talking about here.
Well, when they apply for the license or permission, they can also apply not to have to do it, can't they? I think I read them through the procedures there that you can apply to get permission to make these changes architecturally or to the property, but you can also apply not to have to do it.
Not to have to do what? I'm sorry, I didn't
To
catch.
adhere to the historic preservation requirements.
No, I'm only suggesting this right here is that, again, it only applies in local historic districts, and the previous one was mandating and directing the city to create local historic districts, and the process by which they were doing that would put people in a local historic district who didn't want to be in a local historic district, and this gives the property owner the right to make his choice.
But any changes to existing residential property for changes has to go through for planning and zoning if it's not standard, right? Yes. Planning and zoning, so there are processes in place. So somebody putting a pool in, they had to pull a permit, and that had to be identified.
Yeah, that's the problem. Mm-hmm. I don't think some of those problems are being identified.
Yeah. But this is not about that.
That's a process.
Yeah, that's a more process.
It's more
ordinance. Yeah.
It's a tough issue, man, because, I mean, we feel very strongly about this, and this is something that I know a lot of people that live here feel strongly about. And we don't want to lose this character, and so that's why we're having this discussion, obviously. It's a very important discussion. Someone else brought something up. As time goes on, these city charter reviews are becoming more and more important. I mean, this is I've said it before, and we've all said it, it's a constitution. This is the framework that we're going to move forward from in the city. There should be more public notification for these meetings. More people should know about what's going on, so that we could have more public input. A single group of meetings like this to make these very, substantial changes that we're making, substantial but important changes that we're making, are things that the city should know about. I just want to make that comment because, not the city, I'm sorry, but the residents should know about more. I think we'd have more involvement with this, we'd have more input if that were the case. So maybe in the future, these charter review commission groups that we're involved in could be advertised better than they have been.
All right, so we have a motion. Can you
And can I make one final comment and just, continue on, what Farley said and what, others have said. On June 3rd, 2 weeks ago, we talked about this section 6 or Article 6 on sustainability really being a value statement or a vision statement for the city, right? So I really want to maintain that aspirational value statement approach to what we're doing. So I really don't want to take any teeth out of what we've got as it's written now, because we do need to find a way to preserve the historic character of the city. It's disappearing all the time with changes that take place in Flagler and changes that take place in Canal. So we got to find a way to continue to preserve that. And if our issue is about disclosure, let's address disclosure and not rewrite the vision statement that we have.
No, I think Palmer's language was to get rid of A and B, because what it does is it takes away people's property rights. And I think when we had the last meeting, the last time, the community came out in full support that they didn't want their property rights taken away from. They didn't want an arbitrary board. They don't want any more regulations. If you live in a historic house and you want to put it in the national, you have the ability to do that. If you don't, then that's fine. I mean, if the city wants more historical houses and they believe that the money from the taxpayers should be spent on buying historical houses and fixing them up, they can. But the city made a decision not to take the historical women's center and spend the money on it because it didn't make sense. So, this caveat here opens up the door for what we had last time, where something was trying to be railroaded through, even after our attorneys said, hey, listen, there's state statutes and there's Florida statutes that say that's a taking of somebody's private property. So legally it can't be done. So I don't know why we want to leave the open window for that to happen again, and for staff to waste time, and for commissioners to wait time, and for us to go to meetings that we know that because somebody wants a historical area and they want all the doors to be purple, doesn't mean that it's right and that somebody has the right to impose that on private property rights. So I think that's what Palmer's wrote this in a very nice way to understand that as a city, yes, we are an old city and we want to create historical opportunities. And I think let's look at the opportunity of what's tax incentives, what can the city do to help support that. I think what we don't want is we don't want somebody that's 95 years old that has a house that has some damage, and now they're stuck in this weird situation where now they've got to go get this special permission to fix up their property in a certain way that meets some third-party board's opinion, and they don't have the financial ability to do so. I don't see a lot of houses being torn down that are beautiful, that can really be repaired properly. I'm not seeing that. Most of the ones that are being torn down and demolished are ones that need to be torn down and demolished. So if it was rampant, I'd say, okay, we have a problem. But right now it's not rampant. And I think that people are taking as much time as they can to restore the houses that they have. And I think our community looks beautiful. And I think the message that we send here is that, we want to support that. And if there's any tax incentives, if there's any other city support that maybe I'm unaware of, I think that needs to be the direction that we drive the bus.
Mr. Chairman, I think he's raised some good points. And what Palmer's language does too is C and D. It gives us more guidance, where he talks about encouraging local groups of private citizens, which we talked about earlier with Deb Exum, and to make foundations and to take a leadership role in private financial support. So that's not in this current language, but I like that he brought it in. I also like that he brought in that the city is going to continue to provide financial support for care and maintenance of historically and locally designated structures or sites owned by the city, like Old Ford Park. Like maybe if this were in, would they have done something different with the women's club? I don't know. But, and then you have your garden club. I mean, you have the garden club. You have the garden club. So those two are additional extra things which I think really give value to our value statement. I like that he put C and D in in just number B here because it says the same thing. I think the only thing we're having a little heartburn over is this creating and expanding upon local historic districts, because truly that is the mandate. What do you mean by that? And again, encourage, assist, and voluntarily maintain. I like those words. And this updating the regulations, still, I don't know what that says. I don't know why that's there. What does that mean? Good, bad, ugly? I don't know. So I don't think he takes anything away. I think he adds to, and I think that the city and the local people have more of a duty to participate with this new language.
Yes.
Grant, what he just said about a taking, is that true? Is it the current language we have regarding historic districts requiring people to upgrade their property or maintain and in current fashion with what the historic district is that actually a taking?
So it would obviously depend on the facts of the case. There's always the concern that if you overregulate, you can infringe on somebody's personal rights to their property, right? So you always have to strike a balance, which is why I think the more general in terms of the language we're using in the charter, the better. And then you get into the weeds when it comes to the regulations. So for purposes of your question, I think we keep things as general as possible in this language. And then if there are instances within Chapter 50 that perhaps need to be revised, city staff can do that as well in accordance with either changes or not changes to this section.
Okay, thank you.
Farley, would you like to restate your motion? Thank you. I'm sorry, Palmer.
Yeah.
Palmer, please.
You want me to
That's Palmer. Yes.
That's Farley, this is Palmer. I'm saying again, Mike, I'm sorry.
Yes, can you restate your motion, please?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the revision to Charter Section Article 6.03 as stated in my memorandum.
Second.
Did we make another motion? I think there's a motion on the floor.
He just reread it.
Are we ready?
The same
I
motion.
know, but we're ready. But that Palmer made the motion.
Okay, can I just say something? Okay, and this is just grammatical. The intro statement is, shall manage the city's position to historic stewardship by the city will continue. I think it should be as follows. It's just grammatical. The intro sentence.
Where exactly, in D?
You've got, shall manage the city's position to historic stewardship by, and then you list the 4 conditions. I'm saying grammatically it should be to the historic stewardship as follows.
Okay, that's fine.
Can we do that?
I'd be happy to amend it to read that way.
Can I add with something too? I think A and D need to have the words continue removed from them.
Continue, where?
On A and D.
City.
Just the word continue. So instead of the city will continue to encourage, the city will encourage.
Okay.
Oh, I see, okay.
Anybody use Grammarly? I mean, it's great. It really is. I highly recommend it.
Just to add to the grammar police here, if A, B, and C, or A, B, and D are going to have the language of will continue, and then C is the city encourages, they don't agree in gender group. So it would say the city will encourage instead of encourages. It's just a tense thing.
Okay.
And city attorney can obviously wordsmith a little bit better than us. So there's a motion on the floor, a second.
I'll call for the vote. Member Wilson.
Yes.
Member Smith.
Yes.
Member Poole.
Yes.
Member Fugile.
Yes.
Member Riker.
Yes.
Member Hathaway.
Yes.
Member Palmer.
Yes.
Member Rokier.
I'll say no.
Vice Chair Eisen.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
With obviously the city attorney reviewing that language to make sure it's word crafted correctly.
Happy to do so.
I made those changes. I just gave her the copy with those
Thank you
changes.
so much. Sharon, do we have something else on the agenda?
Yes, we
Or
do.
Susan?
I knew who you meant. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Section 1.05 annexation. Well, excuse me. Let's go back. Section 6.04, sale or lease of significant public lands. That was the last section under sustainability. I do not have any questions from the Charter Review Committee, but we were looking at all the sections in that area. So is there anything anybody would like to discuss in that particular item?
I didn't want to change that. I didn't see any need to change it, and I agree with some of the comments from the public on those issues.
I just wanted to tell you a little story about that. So when we were discussing the AOB site, and we must have had 5 or 6 RFPs, I don't remember how many RFPs were out. And without boring you with all of the stories about all the RFPs, one of them was for a riverboat that they were going to bring down from Tennessee. And they were going to bring this riverboat down on the rivers, and then they were going to park it outside on the water at the AOB site. And this riverboat was going to be a restaurant and whatever else. It wasn't going to move. It was just going to sit there because it couldn't move because it was not a good structure. And one of the commissioners even went to Tennessee to take a look at the riverboat and brought back photographs of how dilapidated this thing was. And all I could think of is, why would a riverboat from Tennessee be part of historic New Smyrna Beach? And it was horrible. And it was the only thing in 9 years on city commission that I ever cried over. I mean, I went home and I cried over that because it was a vote of 3-2, and the riverboat was coming. So anyway, I don't know what I know what happened. The riverboat couldn't come because they couldn't get it to us. So it was like,
Right. I think Find had something to do with the Inland Navigation District had something to do with it.
maybe so, Farley, yeah. But
Because
it's
we
funny
still
now,
have
but
the barge going through there.
it wasn't funny at the time because that riverboat was coming, and I was like, oh my God. So I like that you have to have a unanimous vote of all the commissioners, and we're not going to get a riverboat because of it.
And I would add to that, what also happened was when they measured the length of the riverboat, it couldn't make the turn coming in Ponce Inlet.
That's right.
And that also stopped it. But I agree with you, it was a nightmare.
It was awful. So that's my story, that's all.
There was also going to be a Publix and a barbecue restaurant and a marina and everything else, and nobody could ever come to an agreement, so it's still sitting there vacant as we speak today.
Correct.
And maybe that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
No. Considering how much it's appreciating in value and plus the opportunities that we could have with that property for the future, it's a great asset for the city, absolutely. That particular property, for sure.
All right, so if there are no comments there, then the last item on the agenda at the moment is Article 1, Establishment and Powers, Section 2.05, Annexation. You actually have, as an additional piece of material tonight, you have a memorandum from the city attorney stating that there is actually, yes, this section does need to be changed, but it is not action that can be taken by this committee. It is action that needs to be taken by the city commission. And she is recommending that that action be taken to the city commission and have it removed from the charter. So, yeah.
So what action is she proposing?
Well, it is contrary to current law, so it needs to be removed from the charter altogether. But it can't be done by this group. It has to be done by the city council, city commission, rather.
And they will be putting that in the Code of Ordinances instead.
It would just be removed from the charter completely,
Well, there's-
that particular section.
It's a whole procedural thing, so I didn't know if that's something needed to go in the Code of Ordinances under planning and development.
It will not.
It will not?
Yeah.
So it's all totally strict. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so that answers that. So there's no action needed by this committee formally. It'll be taken care of by the elected body.
Great, thank you very much. So that concludes all of our agenda items.
Chair, if I could ask a clarifying question, and I could be wrong, we may have dealt with this. Somewhere along the line, the subject of the Utilities Commission was mentioned.
Yes.
Yes,
And
that-
Susan can speak on that.
Yes, it was a question asked by Ms. Poole, and her question has been answered. So that's why it got removed from the agenda. It was a procedural question.
Okay. I have a question on it, and maybe the city attorney can answer it. They changed their name to this, what is it, NSB Utilities now? Does that impact the way it's written in the charter? Because the charter only talks about the Utilities Commission. To me, it's just a name change, but I mean, is that something that should be addressed?
I don't think it would have to be addressed. If you felt strongly about it, you could make a recommendation to the commission to take a look at that. However, I think we're fortunate, we have the one commission, so utility commission. I don't think there would be confusion. And certainly under their powers, they have the ability to make that name change, and everybody recognizes it, I think, as the same body.
Okay, I was just make sure it was something we didn't have to recommend.
I have a quick question. Those are all the agenda items, correct?
Those are all that we had, yes.
All right.
Moving
So
forward.
I missed the first meeting, so if I'm speaking out of turn and I didn't watch it correctly, tell me. There was some conversation at the first meeting about the preamble. And I think everyone, or a lot of people thought we should revisit that at the very end. Is that necessary or not? Everybody good
I
with
have
the
not had
preamble?
anybody give me anything that they want to change in the preamble, so I
No,
guess.
I
Everybody's
I
good?
think
Okay.
considering what we've gone through so far, the preamble seems to follow right along with it.
Okay.
I'd like to add something. You ready for this?
Uh-oh.
All right, so we've been talking about the future of New Smyrna Beach. And there's a lot of people that care very, very strongly about, including all of us here, as well as people that live here and have homes that have greatly appreciated and value because of the unique character of New Smyrna. So what is that unique character? I think it's something that we need to discuss and define, and then figure out what other aspects can be added very generally and in just aspirational ideas to the city charter that could help with that. So we've talked about environmental stewardship, we've talked about sustainability in general. Obviously, those are things that are being included more and more in city charters and are going to be at least recommended to be in ours, continue to be in ours. We've also discussed historical resources and historical perspective in our city by Palmer's work that he did to rewrite that section. We have discussed the comprehensive plan. We've discussed growth. Those are all things that are very important to people locally. But what are some of the other things that create the unique character of New Smyrna Beach? I think that maybe we ought to consider including a section on the city helping to develop cultural resources here. The art and music scene in New Smyrna Beach. Now, it's already happening. We have one of the largest art festivals in the state here in New Smyrna. We have art going on all around us. A lot of people come here from Orlando or from wherever because there's a great art scene here. Performance art, painting, all the stuff that the Hub does, that Jane's does, the Atlantic Center for the Arts, the entire Arts on Douglas community. And I think the city is already working toward that, just as they were with environmental stewardship and everything else. So it seems congruent to me for that to be included in a section in the charter. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
It's a good idea.
All right.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
I worked in a city, and just because of one person in the recreational department, she's now made that city quite the center for arts. She did a phenomenal job, and it was such a boon to the city. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
All right, well, I've written a couple of things here, and they're just kind of general statements that I think could be included, and if you guys will indulge me, maybe I'll write a section for the next meeting. But the inclusion of culture and art in a city charter is not just a matter of aesthetics, it's a strategic organizational choice that can transform communities. The approach aligns with broader objectives of sustainability, community engagement, and economic vitality. Cities that recognize the value of culture and incorporate such measures in their charters will ultimately create more vibrant, dynamic, and cohesive urban environments for all residents. Again, who are we doing this for? We're doing this for our kids and our grandkids. This is something I think should be included in the city charter. I think it can be done very, very simply. And I think that it would be, that the commissioners, as well as the residents, when they voted, would vote it in a second, because it's a huge part of this city and it's a huge part of why people want to live here. So I think that's all I want to say about it for now, but let me put something together, and maybe next meeting we can discuss it further and see whether or not you guys think you want to go for something like that, to add that into the charter as a recommendation to the commission.
Sounds good.
Okay? Maybe other folks might want to do the same thing. Let's have a discussion about it, because I think it's an integral part of this city. And it should be part of this charter that we're building now, which is becoming a kind of a cohesive document.
Farley,
Okay.
it's also an economic issue.
I understand that, I do, and it can be written in such a way that the city, it's not restrictive at all, and the city is not expected to do anything, but that it can be an aspirational inclusion into the charter.
So like the first part that we were talking about before, when it was kind of like a value statement, and it could be added into sustainability because it is an economic driver.
Absolutely.
And any thing that you attend for city meetings and county meetings and statewide meetings of city leaders, there are seminars upon seminars about how art brings in, it's an economic driver. So yes, there is the esoteric value, but there's also the economic value, which
Absolutely.
would fit right into sustainability. And we have the ACA, and I mean, they're like world renowned now.
I know.
They're not just national, they're world renowned.
Absolutely.
So that's something we have that other cities don't
and
have.
again, it would set us apart. It would make New Smyrna Beach the leader in these type of things, to create a city document that states that this is what we stand for, and this is what we want in our community. Not necessarily creating new laws or anything, but this is what we stand for. I think it would be important to add.
Are you recommending making a subsection of sustainability possibly?
Possibly.
That might be the best location to place that. Any more discussion?
Or another option might be historic and cultural preservation. I don't see really how it fits in sustainability per se, but
Sustainability is a very broad word, concept, and it can be looked at under different umbrellas. Like the Venn diagrams that sort of overlap, where certain parts of things are in the same group, where other parts of them are separate. Sustainability is sort of like that, and I see it just in general as where cultural and art resources could be included in the sustainability section.
Spencer, I think you have an opinion.
I think it's a great idea. My fear is if we do it something separate, that it's something else that we're going to put on the ballot. I think if we can add cultural sustainability and cultural preservation, we could add it potentially in both sections as references to things that we want to preserve, and we want to highlight, and we want to put in front of the citizenry. Having it as a separate section, I can understand folks might get confused by it, but I think it's very worthy of study to include that.
So included as part of the historical section?
You say historic preservation, historic and cultural preservation. I like that. And environmental and cultural sustainability. I like that too.
Spencer, I thought about it that way too, but in that context, cultural preservation really talks about our past, about like the Indians that used to live here in a respect. So in a way, it has to be an addendum separate from historic preservation, I think.
We could flesh it out and even define what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Both those things, but adding it as a piece of something we've already agreed to change, I think.
I think that's a great idea.
But I like it, I really do.
Good, thank you.
I would encourage everybody to think about that, bring back to the table some thoughts that they have for the next thing. Farley can put together a piece and we can see where we can put it in.
If that could be sent to the city clerk for our next meeting.
Considering,
Yes,
do we need a motion for this?
Your next meeting will be July 1st, Tuesday, July the 1st.
Hold on.
See, he says, hold on, he's checking his calendar.
Nope, good.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we bring back to the next meeting our ideas on how to potentially add something dealing with cultural activities to the charter.
To an existing section.
Culture and the arts, I think, is the way to.
Okay, I'll amend it to culture and the arts.
Second.
I second that.
Okay. Ms. Evans?
Oh, excuse me, sorry. Member Fugele?
Yes.
Member Riker?
Yes.
Member Palmer?
Yes.
Member Hathaway?
Yes.
Member Rokier?
Yes.
Member Poole?
Yes.
Member Wilson?
Yes.
Member Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Eisen?
Yes.
Chair Billings?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. All right, is there any outstanding items we need to discuss this evening?
Mr. Chair, I will be absent the next meeting. I'll be out of town on a work conference. That's a tough, July's tough for us, but I will do my best to make any subsequent meetings if necessary.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, with no further business, I'd like to end this meeting at 8:28?
7:28.
7, I'm sorry, 7:28, early.